Namaskar and welcome. You're watching Newsnight. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and in the next 1 hour we're going to take a closer look at the two big stories once again setting the national news agenda. First off, course, the robust policy decisions taken by the Yogi government to actually accommodate and rehabilitate migrant workforce in Uttar Pradesh, and also the big story of the day, big decisions taken in the first year of the Modi government, Modi 2.0, of course, laying the foundation of New India, the big achievements. We will examine all that and much more. But first up, to kickstart Newsnight, here are the top stories, the headlines that we are tracking for you. Railways leave no stone unturned to ferry workers back home. 52 lakh workers taken to destinations via 3,840 trains. Chairman Railway Board assures operation to continue till all workers are taken home and trains are being provided as per demand of states. Dismisses reports of trains being diverted. Says there was a change in route. In a major boost to employment generation for migrant workers across UP, state government signs MOU with leading industry associations to provide employment to its skilled workers. Move to benefit over 11 lakh migrant workers. Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath calls providing jobs to workers returning to state a top priority. Modi government 2.0 completes 1 year in office. Party to hold several online events to highlight achievements of Modi government 2.0. Party chief JP Nadda to address party workers via Facebook. BJP to reach out to around 100 million families through a letter from Prime Minister Modi. And government continues to bring back Indians stranded abroad under Vande Bharat missions. Thousands return home by various flights. Another big story, active COVID-19 cases in India rise to 87,987 with over 70,000 recoveries and 4,706 fatalities. Globally, coronavirus cases rise over 58.4 lakh while death toll crosses 3.6 lakh mark. And on the weather front, the weather returns pleasant in many parts of the country, bringing relief from the scorching heat. Met Department predicts onset of southwest monsoon in down south Kerala that can be expected from 1st of June. And the top stories in detail. Well, Shramik special trains will continue to run till the time the migrants reach their destination. This was a big announcement made at the press briefing by the Railway Board Chairman Vinod Kumar Yadav, while he said that Shramik trains will be scheduled on the same day as Railway get demand from the originating state and will also run the train on the next day itself. He said only 4 trains out of 3,840 total trains have taken over 72 hours to reach their destination, and 90% of the trains have been run with an average speed which is higher than the normal mail express trains.
₹3,840 ट्रेनें अपने नियत रूट पे गई हैं, जो 71 ट्रेन 20 से 24 के बीच में जो 1.8% है, उनको हमने रूट्स डाइवर्ट किए और रूट्स डाइवर्ट किए। जो बिहार की ट्रेनें थी उनको हमने झारसीगुड़ा रूट से भेजा। झारसीगुड़ा रूट से जो जाती है ट्रेन वो वहीं से जाती है। गोरखपुर की सबसे ज्यादा ट्रेनें थी तो कुछ गोरखपुर की ट्रेनों को हमने छपरा होते हुए भेजा, झारसीगुड़ा से होके। ये सब एक टेक्निकल काम है जिसको कि हमारे कंट्रोलर्स ने बैठ के और जो एक उस समय स्थिति थी उस स्थिति को ध्यान में रखते हुए ट्रेनों को डाइवर्ट करा।
Railway Board has also appealed to the persons with comorbidities, pregnant women, children below the age of 10 years and persons above 65 years of age to avoid travel.
अगर आपको कोई बीमारी पहले से है या आपकी एज ज्यादा है या आप बहन कोई प्रेग्नेंट है तो वो इसमें यात्रा ना करें। अगर कहीं से भी कोई हमें सूचना मिलती है तो हमारे भारतीय रेल के एक सिस्टम है, कंट्रोल का सिस्टम है, नियरेस्ट हॉस्पिटल बेस पे गाड़ी को रोक के और डॉक्टर वहां जाके पूरी तरह से उनकी जान बचाने की कोशिश करते हैं।
Vinod Kumar Yadav also urged the media persons to avoid telecasting any unverified news related to Shramik special train.
केवल 4 ट्रेनें 4 दिन से ज्यादा टाइम लगा है, जिसमें कि वो ट्रेन लैंडस्लाइड का 12 घंटे का इशू था, वो ट्रेन मडगांव से लेके वहां तक जा रही थी। बाकी सारी ट्रेनें, जो मैंने कहा कि 90% ट्रेनें अपने मेल एक्सप्रेस के जो एवरेज टाइम है वो सब डेटा हमारे पास है, उससे गई हैं, और केवल 10% टाइम में 2 घंटे, 4 घंटे, 5 घंटे का डिले हुआ। तो ये बिल्कुल फेक न्यूज है कि कोई ट्रेन भटक गई, कोई ट्रेन उधर चली गई, 9 घंटे सिवान पहुंचने में लग गया। ये सब प्लीज हम आपसे अनुरोध करते हैं कि इस तरह के न्यूज ना दें। जो हमारे भारतीय रेल के 12 लाख श्रमिक भाई बहन 24 घंटे काम कर रहे हैं, उनको मनोबल को तोड़ने में ये सहायक होती है।
So let's take a closer look. A total of 3,840 Shramik special trains have operated till date. Over 52 lakh migrant workers have been taken to their respective destination. 1,524 Shramik special trains have operated in last week. Nearly 20 lakh people were moved to their destinations also last week. Trains have been provided according to demand of each state. 80% of the trains were operated to UP and Bihar. We have a detailed graphic representation on your screen, and as we go through it, as of now, a demand of 450 trains exists. The railway is providing them with food and drinking water on board. Railways is also operating in close coordination with the states, and only few trains were diverted between May 20th and May 24th. Yes. So, besides that, the diversion was caused only due to technical problem. Only 71 trains have diverted, which is less than 2% of the total trains. Over 12 lakh railway employees are working day and night, and only 4 trains took more than 72 hours to reach their destination. More than 3,500 trains are operated at an average speed. People with medical emergencies, pregnant women, young children of 10 years of age should travel only if it is necessary. Railway has appealed not to create any panic over passengers' death. The centre, meanwhile, is also bearing 85% of the cost of the Shramik special trains. Migrant workers do not have to pay any railway fare. Railways have also arranged for doctors on board. Okay, so over 52 lakh migrants have already moved their destination, and let's now move on to the next big story. Now, this is a big move by Yogi Adityanath government today. Remember, Yogi Adityanath led Uttar Pradesh today, in fact, is all set to give jobs to 11 lakh migrant workers in an unprecedented move. It's a big unprecedented rehabilitation move by the Chief Minister. He's also said that India Industries Association and FICCI have given them a list of workers in this regard, and they have also assured to absorb a huge amount of labor force into the industry. Calling manpower as a big strength, Adityanath has added that the move will only help the workers in regaining their financial stability and also improving living standard. Further adding that the state government is extensively going for skill mapping, which will also lead to the skill building of such workers, adding to their potential to earn. In a mission to give every hand their work and also every household employment, the UP government has assured an overall improvement in the policies and rules regarding workers and said that the improvement will take place quickly.
हर हाथ को कार्य मिल सके, हर घर में रोजगार उपलब्ध हो सके, इस दृष्टि से सरकार कार्य कर रही है, और उस कार्रवाई को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए ही मैं धन्यवाद दूंगा कि इसमें सहयोग करने के लिए यहां पर इंडियन इंडस्ट्रीज एसोसिएशन, फिक्की, लघु उद्योग भारती और नार्डेको जैसी संस्थाओं ने अपनी रुचि दिखाई है। रुचि दिखाने के साथ ही इन्होंने लगभग आज हमें यहां पे 11 लाख कामगार और श्रमिकों को उपलब्ध कराने की एक सूची हमें उपलब्ध कराई है कि इतने लोगों को ये लोग व्यवस्थित रूप से अपने अलग अलग उद्यम में, अलग अलग फील्ड के कार्यों में रोजगार और नौकरी उपलब्ध करवाने की कार्रवाई करेंगे।
And Cabinet Minister Siddharthnath Singh has assured that the Uttar Pradesh government will provide employment opportunities to labourers returning to the state of UP. He said that the workers have always contributed in growth and development of the nation. Therefore, it is time that state works for their development and growth.
श्रमिक जो आ रहे हैं उत्तर प्रदेश, और हमारे मुख्यमंत्री जी की मंशा भी रही है कि उनके हाथों को काम मिलना चाहिए, और इसलिए ये आवश्यक है कि वो अभी तक देश निर्माण कर रहे थे, अच्छा कार्य कर रहे थे हमारे प्रवासी मजदूर लोग, और उसके अंदर अब वो उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर ही रहकर उत्तर प्रदेश का भी निर्माण कर रहे हैं, उसको भी विकासशील बनाएं। जो प्रवासी श्रमिक जो आ रहे हैं उत्तर प्रदेश, और हमारे मुख्यमंत्री जी की मंशा भी रही है कि उनके हाथों को काम मिलना चाहिए, और इसलिए ये आवश्यक है कि वो अभी तक देश निर्माण कर रहे थे, अच्छा कार्य कर रहे थे हमारे प्रवासी मजदूर लोग, और उसके अंदर अब वो उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर ही रहकर उत्तर प्रदेश का भी निर्माण कर रहे हैं, उसको भी विकासशील बनाएं। जो प्रवासी श्रमिक जो आ रहे हैं।
So the UP government has signed extensive memorandum of understanding with 4 industry chambers for collectively generating employment to more than 1.1 million migrant laborers who have returned to the state following COVID-19 lockdown. Let's take a closer look at these very crucial MOUs. The MOUs have been signed with Indian Industries Association, that is IIA, FICCI, as well as Laghu Udyog Bharati, as well as National Real Estate Development Council. Now the government will share the migrants database with the industry association so that they could be absorbed in different industrial outlets, real estates and manufacturing units depending upon their vocational skills and experience, especially micro, small and medium enterprises. Nearly 3 million have returned to UP meanwhile by trains, by buses and other means from the states like Gujarat, Maharashtra, Punjab, Delhi, Haryana, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and other states. And in order to identify these skills, the state has already completed skills mapping of 1.8 million migrant workforce who have been found to be possessing workmanship in varied segments like real estate, textile, electronics, electrical farming, machine tools, paramedics, etc. Now, apart from these jobs, the government intends to provide internship and training to the migrant workforce, apart from making provisions for their crucial security, such as insurance. Well, let's now quickly go across to our first guest on News Night tonight as we discuss this big policy initiative taken by UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. We're very glad to have been joined by Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, a senior financial journalist joining us on the show. I think he's going to be with us in a moment, but we're going to talk about this big government initiative by UP government. Remember, important MOUs have been signed with various industries bodies in the state of Uttar Pradesh, which is aimed at providing jobs, rehabilitating as much as 11 lakh jobs will be generated to more than 1 million labor workforce in Uttar Pradesh who have returned to the state in the wake of the coronavirus epidemic. Is this in fact going to be a big game changer as far as these government initiatives, especially taken by UP government there in Uttar Pradesh, is considered for migrant workers? Shubhamoy, good evening. If you can hear me, your first response to this big policy initiative announced by Yogi Adityanath in Uttar Pradesh, and do you think the other states should also take a cue from him, especially Yogi Adityanath launching UP Startup Fund? I think it's going to add a lot of traction to the ecosystem of startups by and large. Over to you.
Yeah, certainly, Sakal. I mean, it's basically what you need right now is to think not in terms of those, but in terms of trying to work out how these people, and we are talking of very big numbers here. You yourself mentioned 1.8 million who are being mapped, and there are more coming in. So it is going to be massive, and let's not look at how many at the end of a particular period will be getting the some sort of work, but to start looking at bringing the local industry, which basically means the small industry, with the people who are already there, and to start getting them into it. So that way I would say, yes, these are definitely good ideas, definitely brilliant ideas, and it's good that the UP government is pushing ahead and is starting the work without really, sort of waiting on to see whether it can be made more perfect or not. So that's my
Okay, Shubhamoy, now a lot will depend on the implementation of it. I'm not sure if we have Shubhamoy live with us right now. If you could hear me, in fact, a little bit of elaboration, the way railways have also done their bit and they continue to do so. And I think this is going to require a lot of coordination as far as state government as well as respective state governments, right? In this case, we are specifically talking about the roadmap for migrant workforce, their rehabilitation by Yogi Adityanath. Implementation and close coordination with the industry and states and industries working together in this regard. Shubhamoy.
Yeah, definitely. As I said, it's a huge exercise. You know, the workers will keep on coming, and in fact, it will be a measure of the success of the state government that if they are able to draw in more and more workers into the workforce, then that itself will create a magnet, work as a magnet for more workers to come along. Because obviously workers would want to be near to their home. So, you know, it's actually very interesting because that means the pressure on the government will rise, which is perfectly okay, because that will show that the government is actually able to walk the talk in terms of providing the jobs. So as I say, it's not a measure of how many will be, you know, at the end of a particular day, everybody will be employed. That's definitely not something that can be looked at, and that is not something that is going to happen. But the more the government pulls in the forces and trains and sort of gets them closer to industry, the local industry, which again, I mean, will have to do a humongous job of, you know, trying to get them. You see, and you would notice, you know, there are lots of areas like Firouzabad, Kanpur, there are regions in eastern UP which are massively major centers of small enterprises. And these small enterprises have languished because of the lack of trained workers around the capital. So they can get that missing link worked on, why not? Sure.
Okay, the cost that's going to incur on center, that's one part of it, but the benefits to at least, some papers, research papers say close to 8 crore workers. Well, the numbers are huge. What I'm trying to ask you here, COVID or no COVID, this is a big leap or a big way forward when it comes to actually helping the unorganized sector, rather not helping, organizing the unorganized sector in terms of identifying or mapping skill development. This is something which maybe we would not have implemented in normal circumstances, but now unprecedented circumstances calling for unprecedented measures.
Certainly. I mean, you know, one of the major weaknesses of Indian policy on labor has been that we have not trained them. Skill is something which the government at the center has been talking about regularly, that, you know, upgrading the skill. But too few of the workers have been brought with the skill. So there remain a large number of workforce with not very major skills that they can use as their ability when they move from one job to another. Because you wouldn't expect that a worker would be staying in one job throughout her or his life. So when this sort of thing happens, even if this leads to skill training for short periods, that itself I think would be a very major achievement, so that eventually, I mean, one would expect that many of them would also again go back to the places from where they are coming from. They now are better trained, better skilled to be able to demand a better salary. And that, I think, itself will be something that will be very, very reasonable, achievement, and something which one should look forward to.
Do you think this is also going to kickstart more and more startups? Remember, we started with talking about how this is going to really, the whole startup ecosystem will gain a lot of traction. But if you're just not confined to the labor workforce and the rehabilitation, but Shubhamoy, the other sectors like education, like agriculture, like health, for example.
Well, certainly the potential for lots of sectors is there. In fact, if we look at today's data, which has come out, the GDP data, you've noticed that we are in for very sharp contraction of the economy.
Yes.
Now, that is something which is a tremendous cause for worry, but it is not unprecedented. It is not something which is being inflicted by anybody. It has been inflicted by the disease, COVID, and which has led to a very sharp contraction in the economy. Obviously, the governments at the state and at the center will have to be trying lots. But at the same time, if we use this period, as you rightly pointed out, to train the workers, accepting the fact that there is going to be, low income, the fact that there is going to be less employment opportunities immediately, but the training that we shall give them now will be extremely useful for them when the economy starts coming back on steam. Then it can start taking advantage of these workers, which it has not been able to do for several decades. And I think that will be a remarkable utilization of this period of massive contraction in the Indian economy and, of course, the world economy.
Okay, and which also means that your migrant workforce, your migrant laborers, the workforce are no more your liabilities in this epidemic, the way we've dealt with the crisis. But then if this is implemented the way it's been designed, they're your assets for the near future. Can we say that? Turning liabilities into assets.
Absolutely. I mean, that is what we need. I mean, it's very surprising that in India we have not been able to use our labor force for decades. Whereas they are there, it's a young population. We have been talking about a demographic dividend, but that dividend has not really come to us. If we use this time now to train, to start giving them the ability, as I say, that I'm not looking at it in terms of the fact that they'll be massively well employed or it will be an employment. But if it gives them the chance right now to train themselves in massive numbers, to draw on the skills, that would be a huge service which the state would be providing, and other states would also be providing, those who have labor surplus, to the workers when the economy comes back on a more even keel, to be able to make them much more, as you say, look as an asset rather than as a liability.
But in all this, what are the challenges that you foresee? This could not be an easy task. This would not be an easy task.
It certainly will not be an easy task. It certainly will not be easy because the scale, and as I say right at the beginning, that the more successful any state is, and in this case UP, which is India's largest state in terms of population. In fact, if you look at UP, it can be the 5th largest country in the world by its population. If it becomes successful, then it will actually be drawing in more workers. So the demand will keep on rising. But that's fair enough. But that is exactly to be expected of a place which is bustling with economic activity. And that is what you would want it to be, rather than to remain as a backwater from where people just move to other places simply because there are no possibilities. So if a virtuous cycle is created, that is what the economy would be, and that is what would be at this stage, I would say, is one of the best things that can happen to the Indian economy when we are faced with a crisis of unimaginable proportions, as our data is showing today.
And how do you sum this up? The crisis with unimaginable proportions, but the way the government has done everything possible to stay ahead of the curve, and now because we are looking at the lockdown 4 and henceforth the way forward, accommodating, rehabilitating your major chunk of migrant workforce, UP takes the lead in terms of coming up with these robust policy initiatives which have not been seen in the recent past. I'm sure the other states are also doing their bit, but how do you look at these big policy decisions? Just quickly to sum it up, the big takeaway from these policy initiatives, very quickly.
My point is that these are good, extremely useful places, like bringing on and showing the urgency that is required, and that is how we should go forward.
All right, on that note, thank you very much, Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, senior financial journalist, senior economic journalist. Thank you very much for joining us and putting this in larger perspective. And now let's move on to the other big story of the day. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, remember, took oath as the Prime Minister for the second term on May 30th, 2019, after registering a landslide win in 2019 Lok Sabha polls with an unprecedented mandate. But in the last 1 year, big decisions have been taken in the very first year, besides also introducing some big bang reforms. We have compiled this comprehensive report of the key achievements of the government in the last 365 days. Let's take a look. Narendra Damodar Das Modi was elected as the Prime Minister of India for the second consecutive time on May 30th. In the 2019 Lok Sabha elections, the country again entrusted the Narendra Modi to run government, once again with a massive majority. After coming to power, several important decisions have been taken over 1 year. Modi government is all set to complete 1 year of government on Saturday. BJP will hold over 1,000 virtual rallies across nation and will celebrate the completion of 1 year of government digitally in view of spread of coronavirus. BJP President JP Nadda will address party workers via Facebook Live. On completion of 1 year of Modi government, BJP will reach out to around 100 million families through a letter from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The letter will focus on steps to become self-reliant and will explain India's role in global development. The letter will also outline steps taken by government to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and ways to remain healthy. BJP will hold virtual rallies in almost every district and will interact with workers, as well will stress on the theme of vocal for local. BJP will hold over 1,000 virtual rallies at national and state level. Social platforms like WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter will also be used to convey government's achievements to the nation. Several historic decisions have been taken in the first year of Modi 2.0. In the second term of Modi government, the most important decision taken was regarding the state of Jammu Kashmir. The government removed certain provisions of Article 370, after which the state was also bifurcated into two separate union territories, that of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. The government also implemented the Citizenship Amendment Act in its second term. In fast tracks Indian citizenship for persecuted minorities from Bangladesh, Afghanistan and Pakistan. The Modi government took a historic decision as they passed a Triple Talaq bill which empowers Muslim women. The Muslim Women Marriage Protection Bill 2019 was passed by Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha to ban Triple Talaq. Modi government took important steps towards economic recovery in the country by merging 10 state-run banks to form 4 national banks. Apart from this, Modi government formed 15-member trust to oversee construction of Ram Mandir in keeping with the Supreme Court verdict.
मोदी सरकार के दूसरे कार्यकाल का 1 साल पूरा हुआ है। 2014 से देखेंगे तो 6 साल पूरे हुए हैं। ये 6 साल में भारत बहुत बदला, गरीब को आवाज मिला, सामाजिक न्याय मिला, जो विभाग अविकसित थे उनको आकांक्षा मिली और कौशल मिला, युवाओं को रोजगार के अवसर मिले। ऐसे में पिछले 1 साल में बड़े बड़े फैसले हुए, जिसमें 370 धारा का हटना, राम मंदिर निर्माण शुरू होना, ट्रिपल तलाक पर पाबंदी लगना, बैंकों का विलय होना और आर्थिक क्षेत्र में सबसे कम कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स वाला देश बनना, बहुत सुधार हुए।
In its second term, Modi government also has to deal with the corona pandemic, for which they took stringent steps to overcome it. The Modi government has been praised globally during the coronavirus pandemic for timely implementation of steps to control its spread. World leaders praised Modi government as well as Prime Minister Modi for announcing a special relief package of 20 lakh crore rupees amidst the ongoing lockdown due to the coronavirus. Each sector as well as all sections of society have been given several reliefs to overcome the economic impact of the corona crisis. This package is about 10% of India's GDP. The Prime Minister has also started an Atmanirbhar campaign which states the theme of Vocal for Local.
अभी देश कोविड के संकट से जूझ रहा है। हमारे पास कोई तैयारी नहीं थी, न मास्क बनता था, न वेंटिलेटर बनते थे, न स्वैप की स्टिक भी नहीं बनती थी और न ही पीपीई सूट्स बनते थे। आज सभी बनने लगे। मेक इन इंडिया का आविष्कार 4 महीने में हो गया और आज देश आत्मनिर्भर होकर आज कोरोना से लड़ रहा है और देश के जनता के सहयोग से हम कोरोना को मात देंगे, ये मुझे विश्वास है।
Overall, the Modi government has taken several steps in its second term, from taking important steps for development of society to support the nation's economy. Government has taken necessary steps. Apart from this, government is working round the clock to provide relief to people. With Shailendra Mishra, News at Night Desk, DD India.
And well, to discuss this, we have Praful Ketkar, editor, organizer, RSS Ideologue, very eminent RSS Ideologue, joining us on the show. Praful, good evening. I'm going to quickly start asking you with a very simple and a brief question. 365 days, you've appeared in so many shows, debates, Praful. Even if one has to critically examine the last 365 days plus the last 2 months, what do you think has been one of the most unprecedented policy decision taken by the Modi government, the game changer?
See, if you recall exactly what happened 365 days ago, it was a unexpected and a very thumping victory again by the Modi-led NDA. And the way it started, calling all BIMSTEC leaders for the for the swearing in, and then taking forward with the some unique steps. I recall the first striking decision that actually completely gave me a pleasant surprise.
Okay.
Was the formation of Jal Shakti Ministry.
Okay.
The way it was combined as a complete ministry, and the way water has brought to the central stage of the next 5 years planning, that was a clear-cut departure from the conventional thinking. Obviously, this 1 year will be remembered for the way government has taken decision on Article 370 and 35A in Jammu and Kashmir, and the way those decisions are executed till now. The way this triple talaq ordinance and then bill was introduced, and obviously the way government has taken stand in the Supreme Court as far as the Ram Janmabhoomi issue is concerned. Many people used to think that these issues are not solvable, this cannot be addressed in the given framework, but despite having no clear-cut majority in the upper house, Rajya Sabha, government not just handled them well, but actually managed the public opinion in such a way, communicated the things in such a way that even in many in the opposition camp had to support these initiatives. That clearly shows that if you have a will, if political will is there, there can be way. And if I have to analyze this 1 year, I would certainly give it for the political will and finding the constitutional ways to deal with the most difficult issues.
And getting a political will on something as important as anti-terror law, which has always been considered one of the most cornerstones of Modi government's zero tolerance towards terror. Because in the last 6 years, the way we have dealt with Pakistan, we have dealt with terror state Pakistan under Modi government, I think that has also been extremely unprecedented.
Absolutely. See, on defense and strategic front, the way we have handled with our foreign policy, our defense management, the creation of CDS, I think another important decision, the amendment to UAPA, and clearly identifying who are who will be considered as the abatement to terrorism. Again, that was the important amendment. But as you said clearly, the way we have handled the entire terror sponsor state called Pakistan, and the way we have managed our security without any compromise, that is really commendable. I find the main reason for this is one, the way we have created a totally new kind of machinery to deal with the the kind of confidence that was given to various agencies as far as dealing with this issue is concerned. At the same time, the way we have handled our foreign policy, we actually dehyphenated our relationships with many countries. We didn't mix it up, either Palestine with Israel or Iran and Afghanistan, or for that matter Mongolia and Japan with China. We dealt with them on one-to-one basis with full, as a sovereign independent countries, with full respect and dignity. And that is, a very, critical differentiating factor. Even in the recent OIC meeting, the way Maldives or UAE, these countries have played a critical role in, and the Pakistan has been virtually sidelined even in the Islamic community.
Sidelined and isolated. Yes. So, since you talked about foreign policy, well, this is not directly related to the foreign policy, but it certainly has got to do with the way now the world is looking at India in the last 2 months, the way we have dealt with the situation, staying ahead of the curve, and not only that, being the medicine, being the provider of HCQ to the rest of the countries, including the developed democracies like USA. And do you think that has actually changed the way now the world looks at us?
Not just about medicine, the way we have
overall
the entire crisis, the way, we have a 43% of recovery rate, we have very, one of the best numbers when it comes to the fatalities due to corona, but beyond that, the way we have dealt with this with a participatory approach. Many were concerned about our healthcare infrastructure. We showed that we can create. If we have a will with the federal structure and the participation of common people, innovative methods, we can create that infrastructure. But while doing so, we ensured that, the way we took the initiative on the, this entire SAARC initiative, whether G20 initiative,
yes.
Whether non-alignment, forum, the way we use them, and entire world, was looking at India to lead from front on managing this entire crisis. And then came the strategic decision of removing these barriers related to 24 critical medicines. After that, medical teams have been visiting many West Asian countries,
yes.
and our doctors have played critical role, yes. as far as providing relief to many of those countries. So that clearly shows that we are not just looking after ourselves, we are not just managing our
taking care of the rest of the yes.
And that is our sort of, not just as a diplomatic effort, it is a genuine Indian thinking of a goodwill for all.
That term, that medical diplomacy, I mean, we would not have thought, before last 2 months, maybe this would be the cornerstone of Modi government's achievements so far. But do you think, Praful Ketkar, that this is now going to occupy the major chunk of discussion or discourse or analysis when we keep examining how the last 365 days of the government, especially the achievements part of it, the good part of it, the way we have dealt with the pandemic like this, which had no template whatsoever?
This actually, in our diplomacy, this has been there, when late Sushma Swaraj used to handle and respond to, people's queries, or the way we handled even, the health-related requests from Pakistan. But the way we have handled it in last few months, that is a very, a different kind of approach. And I would say, it is in continuation with our yoga diplomacy. It is in continuation with our Ayurveda diplomacy, and now we are going to a larger, panorama of health diplomacy, where we are going to play a critical role as far as the supply chain of health and medical equipments are concerned. And if this infrastructure sustains, and if we continue with these efforts related to innovative and participatory method, we can certainly play a critical role in the forthcoming challenges as far as the medical and health related challenges are concerned.
And we have done it, Praful Ketkar, you would agree. And on that note, I'll have to thank you very much, because we're also looking forward to the letter that's going to be, yes, you're smiling out there, Praful. Any thoughts on that before I leave you?
See, it is important simply because we have got a leader who communicates. And if he communicates, he ensures that people respond to him positively. If a decisive, caring and visionary leadership is there, then people We have seen the way they responded to Janata Curfew.
Yes.
They joined the leader in thanking the Corona warriors. This was possible in a democratic participatory way because we had this kind of leadership. So this letter is very important because this is not a celebratory mode, though it is 1 year completion of the government, but still it is conveying and communicating is equally important in this crisis situation. That is the crux, I think, of this letter, and that's why I'm looking forward to what he is trying to convey to the people, because it is going to show the way for what is going to be the country.
And we have Arun
Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Yes, and my colleague Arun is going to elaborate a little more what is expected at 6 a.m. in the morning and the whole day. It's going to be very, very special. Thank you very much, Praful Ketkar, for joining us on Newsnight. And I'm going to quickly hand it over to you, Arun. Now 100 million families, and I think we're all waiting for Prime Minister to reach out to us. Now, again, very unique way. This is going to be through a letter. And what more are you gathering from your sources, especially how the day is planned tomorrow?
Well, talking about, yes, everybody is expecting that what exactly Prime Minister will address to the people. But yes, if you look at this entire 1 year, just rewind from 2014 till 2019, the focus of the government was Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. After 2019, Prime Minister Narendra Modi clearly saying that now we are focusing on Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas and Sabka Vishwas. Now this term Vishwas, it says it all. Now talking about Jammu and Kashmir, or primarily Article 370 or Citizens Amendment Act, all these are kind of a movement or a move which shows integration part, integration by taking all the stakeholders on board. So that was done in last 1 year. Focus was completely on people who are living in far-flung areas, who are primarily touching the lives of people, or those who are being untouched so far with the developmental journey. So yes, these are some of the major highlights that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is likely to share with the people, because it is the public participation. Because if you try to recall the COVID era as of now, we have seen that Prime Minister Narendra Modi in all the international forum, be it the SAARC virtual summit, be the G20 virtual summit, be it in conversation with Bill Gates, Prime Minister has always said that India could fight, India could combat the COVID so far successfully. It was because of the participation or of 130 crore people. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made this entire fight against COVID-19 as a public participation. So yes, that's the way today how India is dealing with it. Now everybody was also thinking that how will India fight against COVID? India will not be in a position to fight against COVID because of a very high population of 130 crore people. So how will India deal with it? But here India has presented a very kind of played a leadership role as far as COVID is concerned. World Health Organization is praising India's efforts. World Health Organization is praising the leadership role of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So yes, that says it all, that the journey of this 2.0 is all about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and yes, that term, Sabka Vishwas, that says it all when we talk about Narendra Modi or the Modi government 2.0.
Arun, very briefly, now we're looking at virtual rallies tomorrow. There's going to be social platforms that will be utilized tomorrow to talk about how these 365 days have been, and of course, plus Prime Minister Modi's outreach to the country through that letter.
That's right, Sakal. If I may sum it up in a very brief as of now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is known for his out-of-the-box ideas. So during the COVID times, he's trying to ensure that he's connected with the people and why the virtual means. And yes, there will be virtual rallies. The BJP will be trying to address all the party persons, primarily the BJP workers, through the electronic or what we say is virtual rally. We try to connect with them. The BJP president will also be trying to connect via virtual rally. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi, when he writes letter to the nation, yes, of course, it says it all that Prime Minister is known for the out-of-the-box ideas, and he'll try to connect with everyone. And of course, be thanking to the people, specifically during this COVID time, the way the people have come out and made this a public movement or public participation as far as fight against COVID is concerned.
Thank you very much, Arun Sharma, for getting us those exclusive details on Newsnight tonight. Thanks. And before we move on and wrap up this show, we need to take a very short break here. We have more on the other side. Vande Bharat mission continues on the other side. Stay with us.
काश मैं महंगी टिकिया ले पाती। महंगी नहीं, फेना सुपर वॉश टिकिया आजमाइए, बेहतरीन झाग, रोज और चंदन सुपर चमक।
महंगी टिकिया जैसी धुलाई फेना सुपर वॉश टिकिया में समाई।
फेना ही लेना।
फेना कपड़ों से हटाए कीटाणु, इंडिया में बना गर्व के साथ।
हमारा डेजर्ट आ गया पर हमारी चैंपियन नहीं आई अब तक। बिल भरने के पहले तो आएगी ना। सुगंध, क्या हो रहा है? बिल हो रहा है। चल अपना कार्ड दे। पिन दे।
आरबीआई कहता है अपना पिन, ओटीपी, सीवीवी या इंटरनेट बैंकिंग पासवर्ड किसी को ना दे। ऑनलाइन बैंकिंग सिर्फ अपने ही कंप्यूटर, मोबाइल और सिक्योर नेटवर्क से करें। हाँ, ये खाने की चैंपियनशिप थी क्या? आरबीआई कहता है जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
भारत में अत्यंत गर्मी जानलेवा साबित हो रही है। जलवायु परिवर्तन, शहरीकरण, ईंधन का अत्यधिक उपयोग और पेड़ों का कटना भी इसका कारण है और भविष्य में गर्मी बदतर होगी। लू बेहद खतरनाक है और ज्यादातर लोग इस बात से अनजान हैं कि यह जानलेवा हो सकती है। गर्मी से बुजुर्ग, गर्भवती महिलाएं, बच्चे, बीमार लोग, मजदूर, बेघर और झोपड़पट्टी में रहने वाले लोग ज्यादा प्रभावित होते हैं, पर इसका असर किसी को भी हो सकता है। याद रखें, इलाज कराने से अच्छा रोकथाम जरूरी है। गर्मी के कारण तबीयत खराब हो तो तुरंत डॉक्टर या चिकित्सालय का संपर्क करें।
Thanks for staying with us on DD News. Vande Bharat mission continues in full swing. 45,216 Indians have returned home so far during phase 2. A total of 429 Air India flights, 311 international flights plus 118 feeder flights from 60 countries are scheduled to land in India. 2,000 people from 13 flights have already returned from the Gulf countries today. The maximum number of flights have been scheduled from UAE. Around 181 passengers, including 4 infants, are on board on a flight from Muscat to Kochi as a part of the government's Vande Bharat mission. The flight came in as a huge relief for the passengers. Also, 3 flights are scheduled from Dubai. The first flight took off with 183 passengers on board. It will land in Jaipur. The Jaipur-bound flight has 3 infants on board. This is the first flight to Jaipur from UAE under Vande Bharat mission. The second, with 188 passengers, including 8 infants, will land in Kannur. And the third is a Kochi-bound flight with 181 passengers, including 4 infants. A body has also been airlifted from this flight. Another flight en route Kannur took off from Doha with 185 passengers on board, including 8 infants. Another flight took also off from Riyadh with over 142 passengers on board. The flight will land in Srinagar. And there's also going to be a special flight taking off from Kuwait for Ahmedabad with 152 passengers, including 1 infant on board. These are the exclusive visuals on your channel. A flight from Frankfurt has landed in Delhi a while back with 247 passengers. These passengers were stranded in Germany for the last 2 months. Elderly, pregnant women, students and people with medical emergencies are facing emergencies at home like death of family members were given priority in such situations. Now remember, second repatriation flight bringing in 276 seafarers from Italy landed early morning at Goa airport. All the required protocols were duly followed and taken care at the airport. 73 seafarers are the residents of Maharashtra, remaining are from Goa. State transport buses were arranged from the airport. In other news, Goa Chief Minister Pramod Sawant has said that he spoke to Home Minister Amit Shah and suggested to extend lockdown for 15 more days. The Chief Minister says that Goa will pitch for relaxations like allowing reopening of malls, restaurants and gyms in the state during the lockdown period.
होम मिनिस्टर माननीय श्री अमित जी शाह, इनके साथ में मेरे टेलीफोनिकली कन्वर्जन हुआ और उसमें मुझे लगता है कि ये लॉकडाउन जिस स्थिति में है उस स्थिति से आगे 15 दिन तक, 15 जून तक बढ़ सकता है, लेकिन फिर भी हमारी कोशिश ये है एक 2-3 चीज रिलैक्सेशन देना चाहिए। जो 2-3 चीज रिलैक्सेशन हमने चाहता है कि गोवा में रेस्टोरेंट के लिए विद द सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग 50% ऑफ द कैपेसिटी, ये हमारी डिमांड रहेगी। हमारी कोशिश यही है कि हमारी रिक्वेस्ट है केंद्र सरकार से, देखते हैं एमएचए की गाइडलाइन के हिसाब से जो कुछ आता है, हम जो स्टेट को रिलैक्सेशन मिलता है तो उसी के हिसाब से हमारी गाइडलाइन आ जाएगी।
And West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee has announced that all places of worship in Bengal will open from 1st of June. Now let's look at these announcements. 2 days before lockdown 4 is due to end, not more than 10 people will be allowed when religious places reopen as per the Chief Minister there. Congregations or functions at these places of worship will not be allowed. Now the tea and the jute industry will also open from 1st of June with 100% workers. All government and private offices will also open with full strength. Remember, this is the state of West Bengal we are talking. And Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh had a telephonic conversation with US Secretary of Defense Dr. Mark K. Esper. The two ministers briefed each other on the respective experiences of fighting the COVID-19 pandemic and vowed to continue the excellent bilateral cooperation in this regard. They reviewed progress on various bilateral defense cooperation arrangements and expressed their commitment to further promote defense partnership between India and US. And to this end, Raksha Mantri, Defense Minister, invited Secretary Esper to visit India at the earliest mutual convenience, with the latter accepting with pleasure. Raksha Mantri has appreciated Secretary Esper's condolence over lives lost in eastern India during Cyclone Amphan recently and briefed him on the relief efforts. The two ministers also exchanged views on regional developments of shared security interest. In other news, Army Commanders Conference, an apex-level biannual event which facilitates conceptual level deliberations culminating in important policy decisions scheduled for April 2020 and postponed due to COVID-19 pandemic, is being organized in 2 phases now. The first phase of the Congress was conducted at South Block in Delhi from 27th of May to 29th of May, that is today. Over 3 days, the Indian Army's apex leadership deliberated upon various aspects related to existing and developing security challenges. In addition to this, human resource management issues, studies pertaining to ammunition management, merger of co-located training establishments and merger of military training directorate with headquarters Army Training Command were also discussed. And the second phase of the conference is scheduled from 24th to 27th of June, that's next month. This will be interactive session with the DMA and DOD, discussions on agenda sponsored by command headquarters and deliberations on ongoing studies of logistics and administrative issues. Defense Minister and CDS are also likely to address the conference during this phase. That's the second phase, which is scheduled for June. India's GDP, or the gross domestic product, has grown 3.1% in January-March period. As per government data, GDP for the financial year 2019-20 has been recorded at 4.2%. Meanwhile, India's fiscal deficit for financial year 20 has jumped to 4.59% of the GDP at 9.35 lakh crore versus the budget target of 7.66 lakh crore. Revenue deficit is 3.27% of the GDP. And last week, the Reserve Bank of India warned economy to slip into negative zone this year, blaming it on the collapse in demand side due to a slide in private consumption following COVID-19 lockdown. The central banks have, however, pointed to the likelihood of some pickup in growth impulses beginning the second half of 2021. Several states are badly affected by the massive attack of locusts. The affected states are constantly engaged in their survey and control procedures. Efforts are being on to overcome with the help of Agriculture Department and local administration. Insecticides are also being continuously sprayed to control the locust attack. Locust control stations have been set up in the affected states. Survey and control operations have been launched the situation. Meanwhile, Kanpur District Administration issued an alert to the farmers of Ghatampur, Narwal, Bilhor tehsils against a possible attack of locust swarm on their crop. Tehsil officials have been asked to spread awareness about the use of old traditional and tested methods to counter locust attack. The locust swarm can be diverted by making noise. Therefore, old methods such as beating drums, canisters, plates, making noise in groups to ward off locusts, but maintaining social distancing at the same time during the process is important. Chemicals and pesticides are also being sprayed to save the crop meanwhile. Let's take a look at the weather on the weather front. The IMD, or India Meteorological Department, has predicted the monsoon arrival over the Kerala on 1st of June. IMD Deputy Director General Anand Sharma has said that it is a good sign, adding that first week is going to be good for the west coast, especially up to Maharashtra. He further added that heat wave has already abated and northwest India is now in a comfortable situation.
अभी भी वर्षा की संभावनाएं बनी हुई हैं दिल्ली एनसीआर में भी और उत्तर पश्चिम भारत के कुछ हिस्सों में, और तेज हवाएं भी चल सकती है 40 से 50 किलोमीटर प्रति घंटा की रफ्तार की। तो और ये मान के चलें अगले 4 दिन की बात करें तो तापमान 40 से नीचे ही रहने वाला है और राहत रहेगी, हीट वेव की कोई संभावना नहीं है और उसके बाद में थोड़ी सी फिर तापमान में बढ़ोतरी होनी शुरू होगी। 1 जून को हम एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं मानसून आ जाएगा केरला में, और अभी की जो फिलहाल स्थिति है, अभी तो अंडमान निकोबार वगैरह में तो आ ही चुका है पहले से ही वो, तो वहां आ जाएगा और अच्छी खासी वर्षा हम एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं। अभी जैसे आगे बढ़ेगा तो ये पहले हफ्ते में हो सकता है महाराष्ट्र कोस्ट को तक, कर्नाटका को तो कवर करेगा ही, उसको भी कर लेगा। और जहां तक दिल्ली का सवाल है, अभी समय है, वक्त है दिल्ली के लिए, क्योंकि आखिरी में आता है ये।
Staying with weather, prevailing heat wave conditions have abated from most parts of the country. In Delhi and adjoining areas got respite from heat wave under the influence of western disturbance. In Chhattisgarh, rain lashed parts of the city. Met Department has predicted rainfall and thunderstorm over western Himalayan region on for the next 2 days. First Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh, Ajit Jogi, passed away due to prolonged illness today. Ajit Jogi suffered several cardiac arrests in the past few days and was on ventilator support. President Ramnath Kovind expressed grief on his demise, and in a tweet he said, and I quote, "Sad to hear of the passing of First Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh, Shri Ajit Jogi. A man of many parts, Shri Jogi was an able administrator known for promoting development of the state and its people. My condolences to his family, friends and followers." That's another tweet coming from the Vice President. Saddened by the demise of Shri Ajit Jogi, the first Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh and a former Member Parliament. My condolences to the bereaved family. May his soul rest in peace. That's the condolence message coming in from Venkaiah Naidu, the Honorable Vice President and Prime Minister also condoling through a tweet. Shri Ajit Jogi was passionate about public service. This passion made him work hard as a bureaucrat. Saddened by his demise, condolences to his family. Rest in peace. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, also expressing his condolences through a tweet, calling him, Shri Ajit Jogi was a passionate bureaucrat and also deeply anguished by demise of former Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh, Shri Ajit Jogi ji. That's the tweet from Raksha Mantri. He was blessed with a warm and able personality. His contribution to public life was noteworthy. My condolences to his family and supporters. Om Shanti. And now here's a tweet from the Home Minister. Home Minister Amit Shah in his condolence message said, and I quote, "I express my deepest condolences on the sad demise of Shri Ajit Jogi ji, former Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh. May God give the bereaved family strength to withstand this tragic loss. Om Shanti Shanti." And before we wrap up this edition, let's also take a quick look at the latest update on the global front. Confirmed cases of COVID-19. Global confirmed COVID-19 cases as we speak have crossed 58 lakh with more than 3,61,000 deaths reported. The United States remains the worst affected, which has crossed 17 lakh cases and over 1 lakh deaths. Brazil is the second worst affected country with over 4,38,000 confirmed cases, over 26,700 deaths. Five Indian peacekeepers who served in United Nations peacekeeping missions were honoured with the prestigious UN Medal awarded for courage and sacrifice in the line of duty. Major Ravinder Singh Sandhu and Sergeant Lal Mantora Tarsem, who served with the UN mission in South Sudan, Sergeant Ramesh Singh with the UN Interim Force in Lebanon, Private Johnson Beck with the UN Disengagement Observer Force awarded posthumously. Major Suman Gawani, an Indian Army officer who served as a woman peacekeeper with the United Nations mission in South Sudan in 2019, is also awarded with the prestigious United Nations Military Gender Advocate of the Year award on Friday. She received the award from the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres during an online ceremony organized at the UN headquarters in New York on the occasion of International Day of United Nations Peacekeepers. Major Suman served as a military observer in UNMISS, that's the UN mission, from November 2018 to December 2019. And with that, it's time to wrap up this edition of Newsnight. Thanks for staying with us. Namaskar.